Republic is missing some supports
That's
to
fair.
make it work.
All right, we are
I
live
think
now.
Kanan is the closest you can anchor like for Rebels right now. I think he
Oh,
works.
for
But
Rebels, yeah. But I still don't think that works. I think Rebels are missing both secondaries and supports because of everyone is the same unique name.
All right, we're live now.
not wrong.
We did it. We actually made it to the
Where's the
live.
chat going on? Do I need to log into Twitch too?
Yeah, it's on Twitch if you want to see the chat. I know,
Yeah.
good times.
You know what?
It says live.
There's a lot of setup to go live.
It's a lot more than just recording audio. Oh
I don't
man.
understand. It says offline on my screen.
What do you mean I
It
gotta
says we're
work at
live.
this?
Refresh it.
Oh, you think I would have done something like this once?
Alrighty. Oh boy, oh boy.
Fix all my stats.
I've gotta go find my password.
Wow,
for
Red
this
Wolf.
stupid
Red
thing.
Wolf was in here real fast.
Yeah.
Good old Red
Oh,
Wolf.
cool. Well, it's I think something cool that we do that no other podcast really does, right? So
It definitely is one of the cool things that people appreciate. Let me get my show notes up before I forget I actually have them. Before I just start going crazy. All right, intro, launch, live shows, games for challenge, odds, quick recap, hot takes, cold drinks, main segment, philosophy, unlearn what you've learned. I think it's my week. There was something we were supposed to out in intro. Mini Strav, hangout. Cool. All right. That's all good to go. That's all good to go.
The Mandalorian disapproves.
Meow. Why doesn't he approve?
I love those Funko bobbleheads way more than I
Yeah.
should.
I have the 3 Mando ones sitting on my desk.
I've got a bunch of the Mandalorian ones. There's an orange one that I got like for Christmas or something. That one's cool.
I have a snow trooper, and he's a snowman.
Nice.
But
Ho
I'm
ho ho.
cute. I want it. Hello. All right. Are we ready to do this? I'm ready to do
Oh, the
this.
chat's live.
Yeah.
The chat is live. Okay. I think I'm ready. Let me get my head straight. After all the technical difficulties, gotta.
We're here.
We're here. We made it. All right, quick little drink. All right, let's do this. All right, hitting buttons. Boop.
Welcome, my young apprentice. Stretch out with your feelings. I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
Welcome back to another week of Rogue Support, your Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast. With us, we have Accuser, Matt, and I hate this part, but me. I know it's always so weird, and I never know how to do it correctly. It's like, what's the somebody who's a grammar just aficionado?
It's a me, Diz.
It's a me. Somebody who's good at grammar. Tell me how I'm supposed to say that, please.
It is me. You should
It
be saying
is
me.
Me.
It is I.
I forgot how I used to do it, but there was somebody who had commented one time and said that, like, the way that you say it is absolutely wrong, and I'm an English teacher, and it bugs me. So then I'm always just super self-conscious when I start the show when I say stuff like that.
How do you introduce yourself wrong? That's not a thing.
Yeah, it's very, very, very odd. All right. Anyways, welcome to the show. We're here. Had some technical difficult. I'm having verbal difficulties too, apparently. Anyways, we're here. We have the first live show that we've had since, well, with Accuser and Matt, the first live show, but for the show since December, I think. So we're getting back into the swing of things. So sorry for the lateness, but we got it together. Big announcements. The Patreon is live. The link to the Patreon will be in the show notes. A quick little rundown of what the Patreon does. It'll be a $3, $5, and $8 tier if you would like to support at your discretion. The first tier basically gets you the exclusive Discord channel that you could talk, hang out, and all that type of stuff. Typically in the past, it's been a great channel for discussions to be had. Then the middle tier gets you a bonus content once a month is what we're going to promise you. We might do more, but I don't want to promise too much, and then life happens. So we'll say once a month. And then you also get to be potentially play a game for Challenging the Odds segments. We might invite somebody from that tier to come on and play games with us, which we'll go into more here in a little bit of that extra little bonus stuff we're kind of added to the show. And then the $8 tier, you get to be added to the Longshanks community rogue support. And I'm drawing a blank on the last part of that one because there was something else, but I'm terrible.
Eventually, when the
It's
merch
in writing
shows up,
somewhere.
it's
Yeah,
discount.
yes, it is. Discount on merch once we get that going because we are actually
And obviously all of the perks below as well.
yes, all the perks. You only get the $3 ones if you're that's
You only
how-
get the
Yeah,
one
you-
thing. You got to join all 3 tiers for everything.
You don't get Discord unless you're 3. Oh man. But yeah, Patreon's going live again. Had a couple of requests for people wanting to get back on supporting the show, and we said screw it, let's go all in, and we changed it up, talked about it, and found what we liked for the Patreon tiers. Along with that, like we said, with that, there's gonna be merch coming. We're gonna be doing some swag and cool stuff. We got a lot of ideas in the works that we are working on. Hopefully, have some by Nova to hand out to people who are at Nova. That's the hope right now. And we could send some.
Yeah,
out to
we've got a
Accuser.
ton of cons coming up, so find us and we'll have things.
Yeah, and then the hope is to send some to Accuser as well that he could take with him to Crucible. And then next we have the live shows that we're coming back to, and then Discord link is fixed in the description of the show, and then games for Challenge the Odds, which kind of was like a last minute, hey, let's do this. Matt and Accuser, you want to go ahead and hit this up and talk about the game you guys played and what happened to the files?
Yeah, so after
Audio difficulties happen.
first off, the long-term goal is we're going to be recording these games and posting them up as well. So if you want to watch the entire thing, and then what we'll do is on the following podcast, we'll quick summarize it like we're going to do now.
Yeah,
so
we for the purposes of the audio, I think what's important to note is like we tried to make it like a learning thing where we talked through our decision making and what we were doing, and kind of giving an idea of the mindset of playing the lists in addition to playing it.
Yep.
So
So after our last episode where we talked about revenge lists, we had a listener reach out and say, hey, can you show me a revenge list into Empire? So that's what we did. Phil played Kanan, Callus, Rebel Commandos with Solo, Chewie, and Chopper. And I played Vader, 2 Stormtrooper Sergeant, Dark Troopers, and then Moff Gideon, Gideon Hask, because that wasn't confusing at all during the game, and ISF agents.
I'm attacking Gideon.
if your
What's
audio
Gideon?
worked, it would have
Yeah.
been funnier.
We played on Never Tell Me the Odds. So Phil won Struggle 1, and then I took Struggle 2 and 3. And we are going to do a quick recap. So if, and part of this recap is really to focus on how we felt playing what we were asked to play, which was looking at those revenge lists. So Phil, if you want to take it away from your point of view as the revenge player.
I mean, I had a ton of fun with it. It's not my first time playing Kanan Han, but it's the more I play Kanan, the more I fall in love with the just sheer amount of stuff Kanan can do. Every turn feels impactful for Kanan, and not just his turn, but the opponent's turn as well. The fact Kanan can revenge trigger against anyone when a Spectre goes down is incredible. Han, I was not having as much luck with. Part of it was dice. Part of it was he just wound up in a weird spot on the board where he wasn't actively contributing to the game quite the way I had hoped. And I don't know, Matt, I think every time I rolled dice with Han, we were one result short of doing what I needed to do with him. So he just felt like he was kind of the anchor, but not in the good way we'll discuss later. so we got to talking at the end about what that looks like in the future with new Leia, and it's got me a little more excited for new Leia. I think she's going to be a lot more flexible, but Han is solid enough. I don't know if I like him on Never Tell Me the Odds. I think it's something I'd want to play more on a tighter map, like God, draw them Sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
I think my overall takeaway was, besides the fact that, from the aggressor list, it was a flow chart every time I went to activate, right? It's, can I wound something? Yes or no. Then it's basically, should I wound something? And a lot of it was, okay, where is Han on the board? What am I wounding and where is Kanan? And it was a very low wound list. Game overall, we had 7 total wounds. I think I had 4. Phil, you only had 3. And the only one that really punished me is Phil made a great move to save Struggle 1 where Vader had to go wound Callus. It was really the only thing that made sense because Callus was on a point. I got the wound on Callus. Kanan was able to jump over, take an ingress point down, shoot Vader off the point, and follow back up on that point with a shove, which denied me flipping it, which was huge, and won him struggle 1. So I think overall it really just was, it made me think, right? Like I couldn't just go, yeah, there's a thing, let's go kill it. And I also left things 2 different times. I left something at like 1 health. And was like, great, it's not worth wounding now because if I do this, Kanan's going to deny me or I'm going to get shot by Han, and just skipped it. So it certainly made me think a lot.
Yeah, and I like that. And every time, like, Kanan, the fact he's got to jump can end up some surprising places, and that's kind of sometimes enough as a revenge trigger. The attack's a nice bonus, but being able to jump and end up in a surprising spot where you're suddenly contesting something you weren't and holding an objective really helps keep you in the game in some great and surprising ways.
And the heal makes condition stacking him kind of useless. So I do think ultimately, I think Leia's going to be better. I think Han was the weakness there, not Kanan. But we'll keep trying out these in the future. And obviously, if you guys have any ideas for future idea, moving forward, either stuff you want us to test or like specific meta lists you want to see shown against each other, or something as simple as, hey, go make this model playable, like anything like that. So let us know. Hit us up in the Discord. So
it's more practice for us, and it helps me feel more like I know what I'm talking about when I get on here.
And for the next one, I promise it will be posted live or posted in its entirety. So
that's...
we lost half the audio in post where I think you could hear me, and that's not. Oh yeah,
only you. Yeah, so it was really awkward. You would think you're a little crazy. Like, why am I only hearing one person talk here?
So
for some reason, my audio dropped.
That's definitely something that the show wants to get to. Is we have this whole challenge in the odds segment where listeners will go ahead and front to us. We probably make a channel in the Discord specifically for it, so it doesn't get lost. But you'll see that in the Discord. Go ahead and put your ideas up there, and we'll pick one that is submitted to be the next challenge in the odds, and then we'll play a game. And like I said, if somebody is in the Patreon tier, maybe eventually start inviting those people on to come join in the games, and that way it's not just us all the time. Get you guys involved as well. It's really cool and exciting to see these scenes. And I guess one of my biggest questions is, last week we were talking about how important wound pacing is to go into those vengeance lists. You said that it's a whole flow chart that you had to go through. Now, if you were to go to an event, how taxing do you think that is going to be, having to go through your head on these, keeping your wound pacing on par to where it's not being punished?
I don't think it's too bad overall. There's going to be feel bad moments though. And there's going to be that time, I promise you, during the event where you're going to sit there and stare and go, holy cow, I need to get this wound here. And it kind of happened with the Vader 2 into Callus, where I'm like, I need to get this wound and get this point that Callus is on. And this wins me the struggle. And I have to make the decision. And yeah, it's not like the revenge from Kanan wounded Vader, but it shoved him off the point, and then it put Vader in an awkward position because he got 2 shoves and just shoved Vader into a corner, and it became a problem later. Like, it absolutely was a problem. So I think it's overall pretty easy to keep track of, but I think you're gonna hit that moment where you're going to regret potentially something, and just always remember hindsight's 2020 and just make a decision, accept your decision, and move on.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting thing is like that was just one game at an event. Like if you're going to Nova here soon, you're doing that kind of event 4 games back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
And just the additional analysis that you have to do against not just one but 2 big revenge trigger models. It's a ton of analysis that you've got to be able to do on the fly repeatedly now because it's such a big part of the metagame. I mean, I'd argue it's a rebel faction identity or a tag identity at this point.
Yeah.
That's fair. And then my question for Accuser is going into arguably one of the most beat-faced lists that Empire is currently. How does it feel as being somebody playing a Vengeance list? Would you say Vengeance is a good answer into an Empire meta?
Absolutely. I think it really comes down to knowing your models and knowing the positioning. And like if we're looking at a premier list, knowing the objective and what benefits you there. Like I said, I came out of that game feeling like Hana Never Tell Me the Odds is a lot harder than he would be on like Sabotage Showdown. I think if it were Sabotage Showdown, it might have been different for Han's level of contribution. But I mean, I don't think Kanan cares. Kanan just performs. Yeah.
Okay. No,
I
that's
mean,
fair.
that's what I've got on that. Like, I'm still like surprised every time I play it. Just the possibilities of what a revenge list allows, especially like on Kanan. His tree has a lot of potential between shoving off points, and then when you add that to if you're activating him well, leveraging his pack leader Sorisu, and then he has access to force push. Like he causes displacement for your models in very inconvenient ways. Vengeance lists, I think, are really impactful just because they do surprising stuff and position you in ways you don't want during your activation. It's huge for tempo. And they can steal struggles out from under you, too, depending on where your momentum and your struggle cube are. Wounding something, when Kanan doesn't have to attack the Vader, but can go and force jump and pick off something that you left on a hit point over somewhere to the side, like you can do some really surprising stuff with Kanan alone, and as you unlock more of like what revenge triggers can do, it opens up unique like inverse play patterns where you're a lot more responsive to board state.
I think that's completely fair. All right, so we're going to go ahead and quickly talk about the cool, exciting thing happening later this week, and that is Mini Stravaganza. Phil
The hype's
and
real.
Matt had a really cool idea, so you guys want to go over this. We'll go ahead. Like Phil, you want to go ahead and talk about the thoughts real quick?
Yeah, so we're really excited about Mini Stravaganza this year. I think it's now that the game's like, not a month out from release, but we're like a year into their roadmap, and we've got, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, Matt, like it's the kickoff to Mini Stravaganza. We go from their opening ceremony straight into the Shatterpoint roadmap.
Yeah, straight
So
hour of it. So
yeah, it's like an hour of just here's what's coming and here's what we get to be excited about and talk about for the next, how long the roadmap is, probably until the next Mini Stravaganza. So Matt and I are going to go and hang out. We recently redid all the voice chats. If you've been checking out the Discord, we now have, I think, like 8 different voice chats, and they're all cantinas from in the fluff of Star Wars, right? So like Dex's Diner, Chalmun's Cantina from Tatooine, stuff like that. So we're going to go hang out in a corner of one of the cantinas, and we're going to talk about all of the stuff that we're seeing in the roadmap live as it happens. So it's like our live react. You can come hang out and, heckle and chat too. But I think it's going to be at least Matt and I in there talking about what we're seeing and what we're hyped about and what it means.
yeah,
Best guess in the moment.
Exactly. Hit the nail on the head. I'm excited for it. So that's 9 o'clock is opening ceremony or Pacific time, so noon Eastern on Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll be
Lunch
there.
hour. It's perfect.
Blocked out the work hour and a half.
Blocked out work calendar. I'm out of office, turning off the phone. Can't get me right now. I'm not doing a lunch meeting today.
So I got the schedule up here on the screen right now for those on the live show. 9:00 a.m. Thursday is opening ceremony. Roadmap at 9:30, and then I think the next biggest cool one for Shatterpoint is
4 o'clock on Friday. They're talking
Yes.
about I think it's War Table. They're calling it.
4 o'clock. Shatterpoint War Table Key Operations.
Yeah,
So I'm
I don't
really
know what that
curious.
means, but that sounds cool.
I'm curious. To
it's
see
gonna be
what's
whatever
going
our new game or whatever they alluded to at Adepticon or new mission pack, whatever they're gonna make it.
And then
Talk to me. Give me more ways to play with my plastic toys.
Saturday is painting stuff, and then Sunday they have their closeout, right?
I think
No,
it's
it's Saturday 5:30 closing ceremonies. All right,
yeah,
so
There's probably some hobby streams in there somewhere
Oh, yeah.
too.
yeah. I think that's what the Saturday thing is gonna be.
yeah, so
Yeah,
We're
but at the
doing
very
the
least, I
Mandalore.
mean, we're going to talk the roadmap, and if schedules line up, maybe we can grab another cantina and bar hop and talk about whatever this operations thing is.
yeah, I'm curious to see. There's a lot of hype and a lot of spice going on that nobody knows anything. Like it's just like what is this? But we'll
Yeah,
see.
all we have is like best guess, like what does this mean? But I'm just excited. I mean, I have like I don't know 5 different group chats between locals and former game groups and stuff that like we'll end up throwing pictures in there,
Yeah.
and well now there's a whole Discord for it too.
Absolutely. All
They've yet to
right.
disappoint.
So next we're gonna move into our hot takes and cold drinks. Go ahead, Matt. What is your cold drink and your hot take of the week?
All right, so I'm gonna put an asterisk on both of these. They're gonna be more asterisks than what was it, the 1998 home run race. So my asterisk on my whole cold drink is because it's not really that cold. I have in my I drink and know things glass. I have my Nick Offerman Lagavulin 11 year because I just was not feeling a beer, so it's not really that cold. So there's my asterisk on my cold drink. And my asterisk on my hot take is I don't really know how hot it is, but recently had a couple conversations about OB2 and people still asking me like, wow, or saying like, wow, he's really like oppressive and good in the meta. And I just don't see it. I think OB2 at top tables, especially with the current meta, is just between the meta changing a lot to being more shooting, which I think makes him lowers his efficacy. And also I just think like, he's been around and he was a problem for long enough that good players are going to know how to mitigate it and play around it. So I'm full selling on OB2 moving forward. So
Stock
he hasn't
down
been
on
in a list.
OB2.
Yeah, he hasn't been in a list that I've thought about for a while. So
I had OB2 in my Rebel Premier list up until Agent Callus was spoiled, and then swapped OB2 out because I mean I think Callus just enables so much more for my team.
Well, something to look at is in the 13 players that are in the top cuts for the TTS league, there's only 4. So 4 out of 13. So that's not even half. Whereas I don't know what last league's number were, but I imagine it was over half for a couple.
Yeah, you're
months
down to a
ago.
third.
Yeah, so it's
Not even.
people are starting to be down on him. Either they're getting like, I want to play something different. Don't think he's as effective as he used to be. There's more multi-attack people in the game. There's more shooting in the game, as
You
well
can
as
play around him.
Well, it's also like be creative and like throw something else in your list or do a different era because he is like, yes, he is all like very, very widespread for his eras, but you're putting him. I think people forget how force intensive he can be and how much of a drain Mind Trick will be on your force, and it's not always the right answer. Like
Yeah, and I think there's things now that the game's significantly wider than on his introduction, right? He was a good generalist he's got the run is still a solid tactics ability, but there's things that just do so much more that just tailor to your list and make your list as a whole function better where you don't need he kind of does a thing. He does it well, but that's it, and he's a lot easier to play around now. When the game's Empire picking him off at range 5 now, like Mind Trick's not doing a whole lot, and then when things are double tapping or shooting multiple targets, and he's able to do that once, the trick's running out quick.
Absolutely. And then Phil, what's your hot take cold drink?
So cold drink. First of all, I'm a little jealous, Matt, and I'll probably do like something more like whiskey next week with my Death Star glass. I'll go for theme. This week I've got the Funky Buddha Floridian wheat beer. So that's a pretty common one. I think people have probably seen a Funky Buddha. That's not
I've
quite
never seen a Funky Buddha.
I've never seen a funky.
Oh,
Buddha
really?
That's
either.
also never a sentence I thought I would say in my life. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no joke.
The first.
He's funky, all right. I think they do have a lot of like IPAs and everything, but the Floridian Weeper is just a good one. Hefeweizen. Hot take. I don't think Matt's wrong. I think we said that on one of the first episodes. Like OB2, I think so. Pretty overhyped for the package that he brings now. I mean, his big benefit is that he fits in multiple eras, and like for a while there weren't like quality 4s for certain. Like, I mean, do you bring Boosh or do you bring OB2? One's performing a little bit above the other. But I think the game's wide enough now to where there's enough quality 4s, and 4's kind of like the average that you plan around, right? Yeah, he's got one trick that you can play around, and run's about the only thing you bring him for at that point, and, well, I can get more mileage out of more models now. Like, in Clone Wars, you slot in Crosshair anywhere, where you would put OB2, and, well, you're punching up a lot harder.
Crosshair's so good.
Callus exists now. I'd argue Ezra probably even does more for your list now. Like, I don't see a reason why you don't put him with Inquisitors and have double ways to break ties. I mean, I'd even put Ezra with Vader over OB2 now.
Yeah, that's good.
Vader
might
1
actually,
or
kill
Vader
a support.
2?
Vader 1.
It's like-
Vader 1.
Vader
Yeah.
1 OB2 is where I still love, because he just gets to basically use Vader's identity with no penalty or repercussion and guarantee full tree, get those shoves.
Yeah, but you can do that with Ezra and get more momentum when you kill a support real good.
True.
I think
Vader
he
OB2's more fun.
goes a little bit further and then breaks ties on the objectives. Mind Trick's cool,
There
but
is
objectives are the game.
there is nothing more flavorful than pissing off some nerds because you're running Vader and Obi in the same squad.
Again, I did that all of Adepticon. It was great.
This is a game where, as a lore nut, you have to just kind of learn to embrace that there are going to be certain combinations. The way I explained it to someone, because I'm a lore fan, I struggle with the OB2 playing with Vader just on theme, but I mean, you can play the what if game. Marvel's done it for years,
Yeah.
and Star Wars even had its Infinities brand for a while. I'll bite. Maybe OB2 goes and joins Count Dooku after episode 2, and there's a reason he's playing with Dooku. I can roll with it. Maybe Dooku is that persuasive.
I very much painted my Ahsoka red with red sabers, saying that she joined Maul. So it is.
Yeah,
great.
I mean the throne room goes a little differently, or something on
Yeah.
Mortis goes a little differently. There's
Absolutely.
shatter points where that would happen.
I can only paint red sabers. That's really what it is. Like, all right. My hot take and cold drink. I'm drinking a tropical beer hug, and it's I love this can. These things are delicious. I love these things. And then my hot take will not be about OB2. Haha. It's actually about Moff Gideon, and I think Moff Gideon at a high-end level event loses a lot of steam and is more of a tax on either like the entrances, like the beginning games for an event, or beating up a local game store versus playing at a top table at an event. I think he loses a lot of steam with his reserve mechanic. I'm more and more I play Moff, the more and more I'm like, this wasn't impactful against Duncan at all. So it's very much, I think Moff is good, but I do think the neat thing about Moff loses a lot of steam the more competitive of an event you're playing in.
That's interesting.
Hmm.
Because I mean, he's still at worst a tiebreak model.
Yeah.
His identity's not bad.
I hate his
I mean,
identity.
extra
I'm not gonna.
dice is
No,
usually-
I'm gonna say it right now. I hate his identity. It is way
Wow,
too.
okay.
It is way too conditional. Not only does it have to be a melee attack, but it has to be contesting an objective that you do not own. And more often than not, where is Moff? He's on an objective you already own because he's a tiebreak model. So, and if he's going somewhere that you didn't own, you don't need to kill them, especially with like this Age of Vengeance list. You're better off just walking up and standing on the point. Like, I get very little mileage out of Moff's identity, and it's very frustrating because on paper it reads so much better than it plays.
Where I would
And
agree
that's why
with,
you're a Hondo stan.
Fair.
where I would agree with assume that I know everything, that tax is that where it plays best is really against those Republic lists, and Republic lists, they're the most force intensive right now, and Empire's already good in the Republic. So like it's a win more card, kind of. I still think he's up there with Iden and Vader. But I agree that I think Assume That I Know Everything was super hyped in the beginning, and I do think it's lost a little bit here.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't
Now,
think.
do you think that's because people play around it better, or is it?
Yes, 100%.
What is it about
it's-
the tax? Right,
it's-
like
It's
or
100%
do
people.
good players just commit to the draw
It's 100% people
or
learning
budget better?
what something that Omnis and I had said very early on in the game is reserving isn't always the right option. Even if you like find your out, find what you can do with this character. A character can usually do something in most cases. So once, if anything, Moff has been improving characters' plays because they're forced to go with a character they thought they couldn't play with. So Moff being in the meta has probably increased the average player skill ability, in my honest opinion.
That's interesting.
That's not inherently a bad thing.
No, it's not.
I think where he becomes. Oh, God.
I don't think it's a bad thing at all, and I do want to say I don't think Moff is bad by any means. Full Empire is amazing. Moff is a great primary because he just does stuff. He's a good stuff character. I just think that specific ability is like Matt was saying, it's been overhyped a little bit, and I don't think that is what makes Moff a good character. It's just he can do good things.
I think where it comes in the most outside of those Republic matchups is into Struggle 3, especially like if something already has an injured and a wound token on it, and your opponent's like, well, I need this thing. Like, I know this thing's going to be removed from the table, but it can't be now. When you play your opponent into a position where they have to choose and they really have to reserve something, that's where I think it becomes the most impactful.
100% agree with that. Like, I do think later games is where it starts to actually still sting, but I do think that it is it's still good. Yeah.
I mean, also later game things cost more force, right? So you're assuming you're wounding stuff as Empire, so it just compounds that tax. So
absolutely. All righty.
Then you have Thrawn that kind of solves some of it for the mirror as well. Like that's
yeah.
I think one of the big Thrawn use cases is he just reduces the reserve cost, and bringing Thrawn just means you're playing a normal game into Gideon at that point. So now Gideon's hard countered.
That reminds me, I played a game with Thrawn over the last week, and I retort my statement from last week. Moving on.
Clarify
That's
for the
your
listener,
little
we've stated
redaction,
your
right?
retraction.
I probably will not be taking Thrawn to Nova. I don't think there's enough time that I want to commit to breaking that list, but I do know that there are people that are going to do it, and I do think he will be something to be aware of. And there is.
Would you say that my hot take saying that Thrawn in the next 3 months is the worst unit in his box would be the correct hot take from last week?
That depends, because I think
I never thought it was wrong. I do think he's a high floor. Like you need to put work into him to get mileage, and there's only so much time to do it between release and like I think he comes out the week of Gen Con, and then Nova's not long after that, right?
Yeah, August 2nd is his release. He's got 4 weeks, I think. August 2nd, is his official street date. Granted, AMG shipping is. Asmodee, right?
Depending on where in the world you are, we'll asterisk that. That's fine.
Yeah, well, also where in the customs battle your models become, right? Like,
yeah. I think, I don't know. I think he definitely is the high floor type of character, but I think somebody will commit the time to him, especially somebody who already has most of Empire already figured out, and it's like, I'm just gonna slot this piece in here and figure out how he goes into my plan already. And then for me, I was like, it's not worth the squeeze right now. He's cool, but he's also just not my play style. So,
Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of the ISB and Agent Callus, and Callus maybe an Empire, definitely in Spectre.
Man, I guess that's hot take number 2. I'm stealing the show right now. Callus and Empire fucking sucks. I'm gonna say it right now. Like I don't like Callus and Empire. He is so much more beneficial for Spectre than he is for Empire, and it makes me salty.
He works on the Kanan Vengeance trigger, and I love that.
It's like,
So I totally agree. Callus and Empire is bad.
yeah,
But currently, I'm tweaking a list where I will put Callus in his non-rebel Spectre scoundrel stance.
so I do think though that like Callus and Empire isn't
Yeah,
bad.
the fact he works for a spy is actually really interesting. Though.
The spy.
I think
Yeah,
He's a
the
spy.
spy tag's gonna blow up here real quick between Callus,
Mhm.
the Leia box, and I mean Bar 2D2 is still pretty good, and he's a spy. Like,
I think Callus, the Leia box spy.
Yeah.
Been messing around with that a little bit. So, but that's a conversation for another time. That might be
we'll
next
talk
week's
offline
hot
about that
take.
one. I'm curious. Yeah.
so it's like
Find us in Discord. We'll talk more about it.
what I do, and I was having a
What
conversation.
the Discord's for.
I was having a conversation with some other people about Callus in Empire, and he very much is like selfish when he's in Empire, which is really on par for the character. Versus in Spectre Cell, he's very for the team.
There's literally a whole episode about that in season 3.
Yeah, it's very on theme, and it makes me salty because he comes in an Empire box, and he's probably his worst iteration of himself in that box.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so
As
smart
the
on
Empire
AMG
side, yeah.
because now the
Yeah.
rebel player has to go buy the box too. And
It's,
it happens to work really well with the new
Good.
Leia box. That's great.
That's how it goes. All right, let's go ahead and move
Yeah,
on.
it's fine. I was gonna buy Thrawn anyway.
Let's
I buy every box because I have a problem.
let's go ahead
I have a
and
problem.
move on to our main segment. And then we're gonna be talking about list philosophy and basically defining some terms and going into what you consider for your list. Matt, do you want to start us off with this, with defining some terms and what we're gonna be talking about as a whole here?
Yeah, so to specify, we're talking about how to build a premier list. And obviously, at least the general assumption is there are two theories, right? You either build an anchor list, and that's really the term that needs to get defined. So the idea of an anchor list is you're taking a primary that you love, that you want to play all 4 rounds or all 3 rounds for an event. And your plan is to just slot in one of each of your other primaries each round, just rotating them through. And then the other theory that people go with is they basically just build 2 unique lists. And the idea is one round, round 1, you just play one of your lists to get it out of the way, or you have a list that is specifically there to counter something you might see, and you just make sure to play both lists at least once in a 4-round event. So, right, anything else? That seems like just kind of a simplification of it, but kind of what we're talking about is the 2 lists versus the anchor. And I think overall, and I think we want to start with the anchor here. From a competitive point of view, I think anchor is still not where you want to be. The reason being, in my mind, there are 2 groups or 2 factions that can really do the anchor well, and it's Republic and it's Empire. And I think the problem for each one is a little different. So if I'm building a Republic anchor list, I'm starting with Hunter. I want to play Hunter every round. And I don't think it's a primary issue. I think Obi plays really well. I think Lumi plays really well. I think Plo plays well. I think Vader 1 plays well. I think Anakin plays fine. The issue that Republic has is their supports aren't there. You don't have 4 unique supports that you want to be able to run reliably. And then Empire, it's the opposite. And I think Vader 2 or Iden or Gideon could be your anchor for Empire. I think Empire's problem is they don't have 4 good enough secondaries. They obviously have plenty of primaries. I think GI is good. Obviously, we have Thrawn now. I think you just don't have 4 secondaries that make the anchor work. And all you're going to do in a competitive nature is you're going to leave yourself weak in some of those matchups, right? ARFs can only be in 1 list. Techo can only be in 1 list. What Wolfpack Commandos, you're kind of building yourself in a weird spot. Now you have to take Padme or Barriss potentially. I think it's tough. I'm not saying it's bad, so let me clarify that. Like, I think it's certainly something that somebody will still go and do well with it. I don't think it's optimizing competitive play.
Phil?
I mean, I don't think Matt's wrong. I think there's a few more releases, and there's a couple other models that I think get to anchor status. I hype Kanan a lot, but I do think anchor, like Kanan's about the closest thing to an anchor Rebels have. He's eight squad points, 3 force, and he works with basically anything Rebels bring to the field, and maybe even scoundrels, depending on how you build. Um, but I think Matt's overall correct. I think there's some limitations on your list, especially if you're focused on your tag synergy, right? It it's there's a couple gaps for a few identities, and maybe that's part of list building, but you know, I think as the game expands, it becomes much more viable.
No, I agree with that. I think my biggest issue with an anchor list mindset is you open yourself up to having a round where you have to play probably your worst matchup with that list, and you just have to play it. You don't have an option, and I don't like the feeling of that, which is where I just stay away from anchor lists because I'm gonna be like, cool, round 1, I play this. Round 2, I play this. Round 3, ooh, I want to play this. I got this or this. I guess I play this one. And then round 4, it's like, oh god, I wish I could play my round 1 list now. So like as the day goes on, you're limiting what you're available to go. You can't counterpick. You lose your ability to counterpick the day as the day goes on. And it hurts the anchor list in my opinion.
Remember,
And I
by
think the
4
counterpick's
rounds,
another interesting point, right? With counterpicking and the way your turn 0 is, right? You pick your list before you even know the mission set. It's hard to, say with certainty what works well when you get to the table. You have to kind of make a best guess judgment call, and it's probably a little easier to have your set team for one thing, your set team for another thing, and be good at both of them versus trying to rotate in a squad around your anchor for that.
yeah, and one thing to note, like obviously in a 4-round event, you'll get to replay a second one of your other 3 primaries by the time. But like, yeah, you're absolutely gonna have to play into a bad spot at some point for sure. But then the other side of the coin, right? The 2 lists is, and I even think there's 2 mindsets for that a little bit. One of them is you basically just pick a list that's a throwaway one. Like you're like, or not throwaway, but you're just saying, this is a list I like. It's not my favorite list. I'm going to play it round 1 because in theory, round 1, you are playing, not to say your worst opponent, but because it's randomly seeded for round 1, you have the highest chance of playing someone who did not win or is not gonna win potentially. So you play like, yeah, list A is what I always want to play. I want to play as much of list A as possible. So I bring list B, I get list B out of the way, and I play list A the rest of the way. One thing to remember when you go to an AMG event with Top Cut, you do not have to play both of your or all 4 of your primaries in Top Cut. The rule for the tournament is you cannot escape your destiny is throughout the whole event. Basic, 4 rounds plus Top Cut. So you could literally play your B list round 1 and never see it again. What I actually like doing is picking the list that I want to play the most, whatever that is, and then figuring out what that's bad against. And my second list is going to be whatever is really good against what my first list is bad against. We talked about a little bit like Empire is really good against Republic, right? So if I'm a Republic player and I'm like, hey, my primary list is a Republic list, and I know I'm going to eventually see someone who's all Empire, who is clearly Empire, I don't want to play Republic into Empire. So my second list is whatever I think is good against Empire, a Revenge list maybe, right? Like those are the way you're going to build your list, or you build your 4 list overall, or your 4 squads, but 2 lists overall.
Yeah, I definitely think that for me, it very much comes down to I like the 2 and 2, or I even lean more into an all with all, which I guess could be a third type we talk about here, where everything can pair with everything. It has the chance to, even though I think that this is probably the hardest list to build because you're having so many different factors going on. And I feel like just I'm taking one list that I want to play because I think it's really good into the meta. Well, what's my list weak against? My other list goes into that. Like very much right now is probably attrition and anti-vengeance is what's on a lot of people's minds. At least it's what's on my mind. Is how would I play into these two teams or these two themes? And it's kind of nice because well, I'm going into Empire, so I'm going to play my anti-attrition list. Okay, cool. I'm going into Republic or Rebels rather. I'm probably playing anti-vengeance. And then if you get I'm going into Republic, then it's like, well, I guess I could pick Empire and go kill. And then it's very much like trying to cover all your bases and understanding what type of archetypes are present in the meta and what might actually catch you off guard. And I think that's something that gets overlooked easily is like that red herring that's going to pop up in an event.
Which is definitely that mindset of taking like an all-comers list, taking something that just doesn't care,
Yeah.
and will just play its game no matter what. I think something like a Mando Maul plays really well into that because it just does what it wants to do. Like it might not be the best, right? It's that jack of all trades, master of none kind of mindset. The issue I have with the all with all, and again, this was early. So I tried something exactly like that at a local event. We did 3-round premiere. So 3-round premiere, we did 4 for that. So it's a little bit different, right? So the issue was I found myself constantly wanting to play the same like 2 or 3 things. And by round 4, I was like, oh crap, I didn't play this other primary. So now I'm like, and it happened to play into a really bad scenario. So I was stuck with it, right? I think the all into all, because you don't have that set plan, I think becomes a lot harder. And maybe you get lucky, right? And like, hey, squad 1 and 2 got played in game 1, squad 2 and or 3 and 4 got played in game 2. Well, great. Now for the rest of the event, I can do whatever the heck I want and play my counters perfectly. But I think that's a lot less consistent or likely. But yeah, overall, like I know my mindset going into Nova right now, like I'm looking at a Mando list as my primary list, and what scares me in that right now is Republic, only because Mando is a revenge list. Republic doesn't have to wound; they can just get sticky, especially like an Obi Hunter list or a Lumi Hunter list, kind of scare me in there. So I'm bringing something that counters that. I'm leaning towards an Empire list. So like, if Nova was this weekend, I'd be bringing Mando something and an Empire list because I want, again, Mando is my generalist I want to play, and when I see a Republic player, I'm switching into the Empire mode.
No, that's completely fair. Phil, what do you lean towards? Like 2 and 2, anchor, all.
So right now, with if I had a list like next weekend that I had to bring with an event, like I'm looking at like pretty straightforward Rebels, and I think it kind of follows the anchor model for better or worse, just because I think Kanan can carry a list that has Luke, Han, or Hera. I've liked Kanan. I've played Kanan with Han. I've played Kanan with Hera, and both are great. And I think Kanan Luke's great on paper, and maybe that's just me not having a better understanding of where I'm at with my list so far, where I can say it's this and this for 2, and this is my other 2. I just think Kanan's solid enough to where, against most lists, he's probably contributing enough to anchor around. I don't know if that maybe changes if you were to swap in like maybe Mando, you bring in Mando or something like that, but yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. I think it starts with, at least right now for me, anchor.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the right call. It's just where I'm at with it.
I think it's more about like what you enjoy and like if you can go to an event and say like I'm happy playing this style at an event, that really what it comes down to. Because if you're not having the fun at the event, you're forced into something you don't want to play, then why are you going to the event? So then I like earlier I said I think anchor is probably for me it's the wrong one because I just get scared of ending up in the situation of like I'm very much scared money ain't gonna make no money. So I'm not gonna do it. I very much like being able to plan for outs and plan for meta, and I think 2 and 2 is probably the best way to do that. Where you're just like, I have team A, which is basically for this, and team B, which is for this, and then if I happen to have something in between for what I didn't expect, then I got something in between for what I didn't expect. And this is very much forward planning. A lot of it is what it is.
I think maybe my anchor strategy is I'm sitting here thinking about it a little bit because I was talking with my brother-in-law earlier. He's going to be playing Empire at the event we're having locally in Orlando, the QuestCon Crucible. Um, I think Empire, you can definitely do a 2v2, no problem. But as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I think the reason, not even so much because of Kanan, but I think Callus facilitates an anchor strategy for Rebels really well. Because when it comes down to it, like a Kanan, and the anchor that I'm looking at is like the Kanan, Callus, and Rebel Commandos build. Callus can work with any of the Rebel primaries, right? I think Luke's the one that gets the least mileage because he's just Rebel Alliance and Jedi, where most every other model that Rebels are bringing are Rebel Scoundrel or Rebel Spectre, like at minimum. Even Bar2D2, like with all the extra dice, if you do their element of surprise, like being able to reroll 2 dice on top of it to avoid the expose penalty. I mean, that's not bad. So maybe it's because I'm looking at Callus where I'm like willing to anchor more because he contributes to everything. And then Kanan's just good and Rebel Commandos is the third slot. It's like, all right, well, I'm getting coordinated fire on literally every other model that I've brought to. So maybe that's it, is it's the Callus portion of it where I'm leaning towards the anchor.
Well, I think at that point, it's almost going into a whole entire different like list philosophy where you're basing your premier list around basically a style of play or a gimmick or a I guess a gimmick's bad because I wouldn't really call Callus a gimmick. I'd call it.
I wouldn't call Callus a gimmick. I think Callus, like, you're getting mileage out
Yeah.
of him. I've ended struggles playing like a Kanan list where I still have force in the tank when I reset my deck. Like that force could have been like re-rolling 3 dice on a suboptimal vengeance trigger or I mean Ezra's suddenly like very well could take a support off the table when he's got rerolls. Or you've saved a model from wounding in the first place when you need him alive and you don't want to risk the vengeance dice.
So let's talk about this. So what is your, if you're going Rebel Anchor? Let's actually like, because I think we're gonna find the weak, like what is, how do you flesh this out? You mentioned Kanan. Kanan's your,
It's Kanan, Callus, and Commandos, right? I think that is a Rebel anchor if you're going to build around one.
okay. And then who are your other, let's start with who are your other 3 primaries. So you're on Kanan, Callus, Command or Rebel Commandos. I like it. Who are your primaries?
Luke, General Han Solo, and Hera.
Okay. I guess Hera's basically just all specters.
Hera, Sabine, Zeb. Yep.
Okay. Luke's gonna be Ezra Lando.
Yes.
And then
And then
Chewie
Chewie and Chopper.
Chewie and Chopper. Okay. So oddly, that's one that I don't hate. And running Kanan with all of them, honestly, because Kanan plays well. You're a little weak in the Hera matchup, right? Like, because you're playing Rebel Commandos, so you're not all Spectre. But how bad is that really?
But it's 5 out of 6. Like, and I mean, yeah, your Commandos are probably gonna die, but Kanan's still healing too and jumping. Like, it's not
And you
the
get
end
a
of the world.
vengeance.
Yeah. You sound so confident about that they're gonna die.
Listen, rebellions are built on hope and the bodies of
and
those they had to
death.
climb over to win. Like it's.
Hope
I
and
watched
death.
Rogue One. I know rebels don't make it out of the movie alive, but it's strategic sacrifice.
All right, so that's our Rebel anchor we're thinking about here. So like looking then at Republic anchor, I mean like my mindset is I'm going Hunter, right?
Hunter, Wrecker.
I'm going
Tendo,
Hunter Wrecker
Arfs.
ARFs because I think I'll play the point down all the time and play ARFs. And like where I think you're fine is like
And
I'm
that's
going.
a problem with Arf.
Yeah, like I think I'm doing it Lumi Obi Vader 1. I think it's like Lumi, Crosshair, and Wolfpack because I love Lumi and Crosshair. They play just so perfectly
Oh
together.
yeah, no, that's phenomenal. That was the model that Lumi's been waiting for Republic. Like she worked well with Mandos, but then Crosshair happened. It's like, oh, you want to see me do a trick?
Yeah, and then I think like Obi Rex Tekko is fantastic because Tekko and Obi play great together. The biggest thing I see
Yes.
with anchoring Wrecker is you're not getting to see Rex all the time. And where I think the list slips off real quick is that Vader list. Like, who are you running? Are you running Snips? Are you running Barris? Are you running Wolf? And then you're stuck with 501st? Like, ugh.
Yeah,
It
I
falls
think I
off
almost feel
quickly
like
at the end of
Vader's
the
your
day.
Vader's your weak spot there, which is really weird to
And
say.
do you
Like,
just hope that Vader drags the 501st kicking and screaming through a win? Like, is that the idea? Vader's so good. He
Okay,
makes
so
even the 501st playable, air quotes
Well, so-
playable. Or do you run pawns
I'm-
and like commandos?
you don't run pawns. That's never the right answer. Don't do that to yourself.
You go, Cody.
No, but like I'm sitting here thinking about it, like I don't hate Wolf 501st for Vader just because I feel like Wolf does do something for 501st consistency, maybe. Like, I mean, when they do get a crit, it's not getting modded down, and Wolf feels like a really good pair for Vader. Like, he's the next best thing to Rex if you're not doing an Obi Vader matchup, and I mean, he's already a melee fighter. Give him more dice.
But like, so do Snips. Like Snips and Barris both play well, right? Because like they both have like Snips has heals, and Barris is going to get that force shove much more reliably. So I think that problem is Vader's support is again Republic's. Well, you're still not
Republic
getting an A
does not have a
tier.
secondary problem.
Yeah, right. It's
I
a
think you
support.
can
That's
even
what we
make it-
said.
yeah. Yeah.
That's the support.
No, I
I think
you
is
can
the
even make
issue
an
there.
argument for Sabe with Vader, like depending on what you want to do. Like I don't hate
Just
Sabe
Sabe,
there.
yeah, Sabe feels is tough without her handmaidens. I think you're just losing some ability there.
Maybe she's still mobile cover and hits fairly well.
So then here comes
Need
the
a
fun one,
mobility
right?
piece.
So Diz, you're on the spot now. If you're going Empire Anchor, who's your
It
primary?
doesn't matter.
See that's hard.
like-
So oddly, I think the primary is whoever's going to run with Hask and ISF. I think that's your primary is Hask and ISF. So
Oh.
it's got so it can't be Vader, right?
well, I would go
So
two
it
ways.
can't be Thrawn.
I would go two ways. I would say one, the way you're talking about, where your primary list is either Iden or it's Moff, or you're doing what a lot of people are doing and throwing Mando in with Empire. And I think
Okay.
that's all fine and dandy. But I also think the other ways you build where Vader's your primary and make him the way you want to make him, and then make everybody else fit around that shell.
Are you okay just losing out on not having that Hask ability every game?
No, but like you can bring Hask with Vader. There's nothing stopping you. Like now that the
Sure.
ISB are a thing,
Alright.
Vader, Hask, ISB.
Fair.
Yeah, like
That's a
like-
weird one.
It's not weird though because you can measure from Hask, and
yeah.
you've got Dell, you've got the ISF. You can have scouts
Wow.
in all of your other lists.
And shout out to in the Discord,
Sarah Cruel.
If I pronounce that wrong, I apologize. But like he threw in that Iden list as an anchor that you're getting a scout, or it was a Thrawn anchor, but you're getting a scout everywhere because Thrawn was taking Hask and ISB. Obviously, that could be Vader as well, but you're getting that two scouts in every list, right? Because then you have Del Mico as one. You have the ISF themselves, and then you're bringing Iden, obviously, as her own scout. So,
Well, so
I think if
guess-
it's me, I'm taking Hask and ISF in
Yeah.
the primary one.
Well, I've very much
I think
become a
that's fair.
fan of splitting Hask and the ISF. Like, I very much like this so much more, and since I've been playing like that, where I'm putting Hask in one list, but I'm also doing 2 and 2, so it's way easier than I would if I was an anchor. Anchor, yeah, they probably go on the same list, but I've grown attached to splitting the scouts up to just get board wide coverage.
See, I know you're gonna hate it, but I think I would actually anchor Gideon, and I would do Gideon, Hask,
Trash.
ISF, and
Trash.
this is well, so because I've been
Long live
and
the
I got
Empire.
convinced
And confuse your
on
opponent
this
just by saying Gideon.
Yeah, right. So, well, that was the nature of the list that I brought in our
Yeah.
challenging the odds was
Yeah, so Gideon's gonna use "Long Live the Empire." Sure.
Which one?
Which
And then- yeah,
Didn't even narrow it down.
the Empire gets to live forever, right? 6, 7, or 7, 8, 9 didn't exist, right? Empire lives
They
forever.
get to live forever
The
because your
Gideon.
ISF didn't, right, Diz?
Oh, that's the way it goes, right? I don't hate it. If I was like, hey, you're playing an anchor list and you don't have a choice. Like I
Yeah,
said, like
so
I
let's
think
do that for Empire.
I
What are you
think-
going with?
It's Gideon. Gideon Ask.
I think
No question.
the thing that I like the most about Gideon is like I said earlier in the episode.
Which one?
Which one?
Moff. What I like about
Okay.
Moff is outside of like the reserve mechanic and the tie break, he is just a good character. He hits hard, he blocks hard, he can make people move. Smug determination is a wonderful tactic ability. Like there is so many good things about his card. And I know people might think I'm contradicting myself because I said he isn't all that earlier, but I was primarily talking about the reserve mechanic. That is what I was primarily mentioning. I think that loses steam. But anyways, I think if you're gonna go, I have to play an anchor Empire. I'm basing it around Gideon as being played every game. Moff Gideon.
And then what's your fourth? So are you doing Moff, Vader 2, Iden? What and then or are you not running Iden then and running like
so I love.
Can I hot take an anchor real quick while we're talking about
Okay,
it? Is
I like it.
Gideon fifth brother feels like that's got some real good mileage. You've got 2 tiebreak units. You've got access to Long Live the Empire in 2 places, and that feels really good for fifth brother. Like, yeah, just move the
take a
tiebreak.
ton of
unit
damage
when-
while he's moving around the
Yeah.
board.
he doesn't care. He's tanky for a support. Like it. I don't know. I like that, and plus then you're getting Moff Gideon's melee dice plus Hask's covering fire bullshit. Like it's like fifth brother's actually going to hit like a train.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I think that's where I'd start as an Empire anchor
With the fifth brother in there. Interesting.
with fifth brother in there. You can put the scouts in other lists. You've got enough scouts in Empire to where every other primary list can have 1 scout.
And Del Mico ain't no slouch.
You
Like
can-
he's perfectly fine. Like
He's a double attack at minimum
Yeah.
at range 5, and one of them's
Yeah.
10 dice.
He's
Plus,
fine.
he's got the crosshair. Let me go blow off a hunker. Like, just is that your hardened target into General Obi-Wan? No. Now you have nothing.
My only real gripe with Dell is you have to get expertise to get the shove. I wish he had shove naturally on the tree. I think that's my
Yup.
biggest gripe with him.
But what you still dodged the question, Diz.
Yeah,
What's
you're
your
right.
fourth primary?
I honestly, if I'm looking at like Empire, right, I don't want to feel forced into Iden, and I think that's the biggest thing that keeps me away from wanting to put her in there. And I would go either Maul or Mando because they're good stuff characters. I'd probably lean Mando to be honest, just because if I'm forced into a character, I'd rather be forced into Mando than forced into Maul, just because of survivability.
So then you're going Moff Gideon, Vader 2, Mando, and Thrawn
Moff,
GI?
Inquisitor.
I can't play GI.
as your 4 primaries.
Vader, Moff. I'm drawing a blank. Vader, Moff.
It's either if you're going Empire, right? It's either Iden, Thrawn, or GI.
I'd probably throw Thrawn in there because I want to play Thrawn, but yeah.
Which oddly, yeah, like it's so weird. Like we've talked about Iden being this big problem, right? That's like the term going around, and the
think-
quick 4 you just threw out have no Iden in it.
Well, I think I'm also notoriously very much like I don't really care for Iden as much as other characters because I think she just dies, and every game I have played her, she gets targeted. Like she has become the character that just gets targeted. But she
Yep.
does pack a punch. She does bring in some really cool stuff. I think she's a stellar character. But what's her biggest thing that's gonna turn her off? Well, you just go kill her because now you put her in the wrong spot at the wrong time of the game, and now she's dead. Cool. She still has all her cool stuff. It's still all there. It doesn't cost any more. Her coolest stuff on her card is the free stuff. But she doesn't survive. And when you need a game, and if I'm gonna be forced into a character with an anchorless mentality, I don't want to be forced into a game where I don't want to play Iden. That's just where I'm at.
I don't disagree. I think Iden. The answer
think
to
you're
Iden
wrong.
is go kill her.
I think that's true of a lot of like flimsier ones where you want to just tax their force, right? Like, yeah, go kill them.
I was curious. Like we sat here and talked about the different anchor options, so at least get some quick opinions on what some of those anchors look like. And I'm like sitting here like typing them wrong as we go. So I'm curious. I'm trying to figure out how to build it. And again, right, like Empire has a secondary issue, and even a little bit of a weird identity there with the other primaries, and the supports in Republic are terrible. And Rebels, I think, just gets a little weird at times. But I do think that looked better than I thought it was going to be, that Rebels list.
Yeah, I think the Rebels one's got some mileage, but I also think we glossed over. Can you anchor like droids? We didn't talk about droids at all.
Yeah, you just go. I honestly, Grievous. Grievous is the anchor, 100%. I think Grievous
is your anchor over
Grievous,
like Dooku,
Grievous
Jango, Magna
is
Guard?
so slept on right now. I talked Joey into playing Grievous, and Jesus Christ, does Grievous still slap? Like I was like, oh god, like what do I do?
I just don't think Separatists can go deep enough, and droids. What's your fourth support?
CAD. Oh, sorry, I thought you meant fourth list.
Cad Bane.
Support, yeah. Like
Bounty
so you got
hunters.
B1s,
Oh,
B2s,
support.
and Magnas. Bounty hunters, I guess.
Bounty hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what are your secondaries? Kalani, Kraken, and Django.
And you could take Crosshair under CAD, can't you?
You can.
You can.
Here's the problem. AMG, give us more Separatists.
Give us more bounty hunters.
You
Oh
can
wait,
take
you can take one.
I want to Roger more Rogers.
I think the issue with Separatist Anchor is just that though, is you're gonna get locked into I need Dooku for this game, or I need Grievous for this game, and I can't play either of them for some reason. Well, I guess Anchor you'd be able to play at least one of them, but like you get locked into weird stuff. Yeah, sure, Talzin, but it's like
Talzin. No.
Talzin Night Sisters is your fourth.
Sure, but it's still very much like my issue with Separatists is Separatists are notoriously not so great at Sabotage Showdown, and Sabotage Showdown is still at least 60% across the board being taken. I would say I'd probably more than that.
Wild to me.
It's probably more than that. That was gonna be my hot take. Is people are sleeping on Never Tell Me because that mission is amazing.
I think people are asleep on
so
shifting as well back in the meta, but
Yeah.
I think Sabotage
Shifting should probably be around more than it is. It's in the core box for a reason.
But nobody's
Everyone
playing
should be
droids.
playing that
There's not
probably
a
more.
single Separatist player in the
Other
TTS
teams
cuts.
can play
Here-
it. Like I know droids abuse it, but other teams can play it.
Hear me out. I think Iden in particular, that Iden box is amazing on shifting.
Yeah.
Amazing on shifting.
Sure.
Her movement, her extra deployment, that deployment matters a lot on shifting. I think a combination of that, the extra people with extra deployment, Sabotage is the far and away the last mission I want to bring to anything ever.
Facts.
If
Yeah,
I have
I'm
infiltrate
not-
deployment, I just never want to look at Sabotage. I never want to play a thing where my opponent gets
I'll play it if I have
equal
to.
deployment. Yeah.
I like shifting priorities. Like I did another game with a local today where I played like pure Spectre. I'd put Spectre on shifting priorities and no problem. They've got so much out of activation movement, and a lot of its advances if they're Spectre tagged. Like I feel like you could play that game pretty well.
I just think people were bad touched by it being the only mission for 6 months, and then it was like stale.
Probably, but that's a whole separate
Yeah.
conversation. A lot of that's
Oh,
just
I
a conversation
100%
around
agree.
release design. But
Agreed.
now that there are three, like shifting priorities, absolutely should still be in the conversation.
And then like back to Matt's point about Iden, like I don't actually hate throwing Iden into a Separatist just to shore up, like make shifting even crazier. Like,
I think we're sleeping on shifting and never tell me the
I
odds.
think people are sleeping on Separatists. Like, let's be real. Like, it's like
The problem is Dooku, like, and a guy who played a lot of Dooku. I think Grievous, I agree. Grievous is in a great spot right now. I think it's Dooku's taking a little step back.
yeah.
And I think they just lack for what are you gonna do? Bring Asajj? I'm sorry, I'm just not a Asajj fan.
I don't care for Asajj either. And I'm all about the bald
found
meta.
One
but not
list that I
Asajj.
like with Asajj, and you can't run it with Dooku because it requires Magna Guards.
Fair enough.
That's the big problem with Separatists, right? You always want to run Magna Guards, and guess what? Unless you anchor
it's
Magna
the same problem
Guards.
Republic has ARFs. They have such good value 3 cost supports, that it's actually taxing in a
They
Premier
have
because they can't be
one.
everywhere.
They have one good 3-value support. 5-0 versus.
Yeah.
Oof.
But it's a 3 support that has a mechanic that's locked behind a 4-cost support and a primary everywhere else with
Yep.
expose. Like
Yep.
that requires a primary in Rebels, and it requires 4-cost everywhere else. Republic have it at a bargain. Like you
Fair.
can't convince me that. Or I'm sorry, your 501st suck, but like you got ARFs. Like that's a trade-off that I'm taking 10 times out of 10. That's fine.
Well, I guess
Punish me. When you're at the point you're playing down and you're doing it willingly, like
Oh, absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
not. Yeah,
so. So to answer
That's
the
I-
another
question,
thing.
but
Playing
it-
down comes up a lot.
You know
it
what?
doesn't matter.
that's my hot take. Pon should be a 2. I still think people don't take him regularly, and ARF should be a 4, and then Mace Windu's box still works.
so
That's my hot take.
That's funny.
to get to the question though, here is, can you build an anchor that makes you personally feel good taking to an event with Separatists?
I mean, the Dooku box, we rated it in a previous episode that it's like one of the best boxes you can pick up off the shelf and run, right? Like, it's. I think you can anchor it. I do think that.
I don't
I
want to
think I'm
play
doing
Django.
Grievous.
I don't want to play Dooku on Never Tell Me. I do not want to play Dooku on that game.
That's fair. I haven't played Dooku on Never Tell Me. And
Are you?
yeah.
You're bringing your mission back. I think I go Grievous, Kalani, Magna, and I bring shifting priorities, and I think that has to be the anchor.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it's got to be what Dooku, Django, B1s, and then
That does not feel
somebody.
good, though.
And then
That
you
feels
go-
like that
I mean,
lost steam.
granted, I love Kraken. I think on especially Never Tell Me the Odds, Kraken is the better tactical droid.
Kraken's going to be really good there, yeah.
Because I think that range for Kalani's tactic is so much harder on Never Tell Me the Odds because you have to flank people out to those side points, and your efficacy of that and your ability. And I've tried it. I've been trying to force droids and separatists on Never Tell Me the Odds, and I think you wind up so often Kalani, if they're not going early, is getting like moving 1, 2 models, 3 max. You're not getting that full move 4, which you're getting on shifting so reliably.
I
So
think
I
you go the Grievous that
Okay.
you said, you go the Dooku that you said, and then you go Mama Cat.
I'm a cat. So your separatist anchor is only 2 separatists.
No, your Separatist
Well,
anchor
in fairness,
is
Oh, I hear
Mother
what you mean.
Talzin,
If you're bringing, okay, gotcha.
and in fairness to Mother Talzin, you do have Savaja Press, who is Separatist
Separatist.
tagged, and gets like a lot of movement jank off of Separatist primaries.
Yep.
I don't think that box plays poorly there.
Yep. And then what do you
I
CAD?
think Cat actually takes Kalani. Like, to be honest, like I know Grievous.
You
is
think
great,
CAD
The
Kalani
Cat
and
Kalani
what
B2
B2s?
thing's real
but
good.
it's so good.
Yeah.
it's so good.
I
would play that.
played-
I'd play that. On
I
Saturday.
think
a
it's
lot
where
of Cad
B2s are
Dooku.
best. Like
Like,
I think
Played a
it's
lot
where
of Cad
B2s are
Dooku with
best.
exactly
I don't
that.
think that's bad. Yeah. It's,
So-
Okay. So then you're moving. So then it's Grievous.
Where Django
Kraken?
landed, we'd not put Django.
I put him
into a
with
separate
Dooku.
list.
Dooku B1s is where I had him.
Okay.
And then it's what Grievous Kraken Magnus. You're playing a point down again. Playing a point down.
inconsequential.
Exactly. Like,
It's
and I get it, right?
it
Your
really
brain
is,
doesn't
yeah.
wrap around it. Your brain's like, oh, but I'm leaving something on the table, right? But you're really not.
Not
Just
in this game.
never feel bad about it.
So I
That
would.
just means a model got missed point cost.
I would either go that way or I would no, because like it's just the Kalani B2s is just such a good listen for CAD. Like, it's hard to like say you want Django with CAD. But
And then
that-
just
Yeah, and
Talz
Cad
and box.
facilitates the Django match. Like that.
Yeah.
That's great. Like
yeah, no, I don't hate
it's
it.
also thematic.
It's interesting. It's not bad. Like it's one of those things that's gonna be fine. And now like that, I want to try it like my next local event. Just like where it is a little not as competitive, more to have fun, and get out and get some games. And I want to try something like that and
Okay.
see how well it works.
My last one with this. Can we do scoundrels / bounty hunters?
Oh, I mean,
Yeah,
I've been
Hondo's
trying.
your anchor.
Yeah,
Yeah, Hondo Anchor.
Ooh,
No, it has to be Hondo Anchor. If you're going Scoundrel,
Mando.
like it has to be.
If you're
Okay.
going Scoundrel, why wouldn't
No,
you? It's
he's
the
not.
one
No,
identity in the game that
not
leans
Hondo.
Mando.
No, he's got a point. It is. I think it's Mando. Mando's good on
No.
everything.
Yeah,
Like,
So I think it's
Mando's
Mando.
real good.
I think it's and now Callus or something. Math. My old way of thinking about was Mando, Sabine, Mando, Sabine, R2 Lando.
Yeah.
Yeah,
as
but
your
I
anchor.
don't hate Mando Callus there because
It could be Mando
Callus being
Callus.
like he can get a Scoundrel tag. That's at least one re-roll
Mm-hmm.
somewhere when you need it. Depending on your list, like if you bring Han or even Chewie, like they're Scoundrel Rebel, that's
Yeah.
2 re-rolls.
No, that's fair. And
Uh,
I think
There's some weird stuff you can do there.
I think your 4 primaries, obviously with the Mando anchor. I think it's Kanan, Maul, Solo. And I think
I don't hate
Kanan
that.
is that Kanan shell of Kanan. I think it's basically like Kanan, Ezra, Chopper. I think it's the Solo box as is, and I think it's Maul, Bo, Super Commandos. Like that's my way of thinking about, or
That's
Maul Django.
There you go, Maul Jango.
I,
Maul
I
Jango
don't hate Maul
brother.
Django there.
Maul
Do you-
Jango
Do
brother.
you think take Super Commandos or Fifth Brother?
Yeah, Maul
Well,
Jango-
that's so if you go, it's either Django Fifth Brother or it's Bo Super Commandos.
Bo hurts.
Because
right
I
now.
really like Mando Maul. If I run Mando Maul, it's Maul, Django Fifth Brother, Mando, Dark Trooper, or DTE and Dark Troopers is my way of running Mando Maul.
I have a hard time wanting to play Bo and the other Mandalorians, minus Mando, of course, into the Empire heavy meta we have right now. I don't like Bo in the meta right now.
I think you could bring Gar in that slot though and play into Empire pretty well because you're bringing another range 5 character and he's got plenty of shoves on his tree, right? Like it's been a while since I played him, but I mean we
He's got
talked about him on a couple episodes ago.
He's
I
got
don't
one
hate it.
shove on 2 expertise and then 1 on 4, I think. It's either 3 or 4.
Okay.
I don't remember what it is. He's
At the
fine.
very least, you can play that range 5 game where, unlike Bo, who relies on like kind of getting into the fist fight range.
Yeah, like I don't hate it. It's just my issue with Bo is there's so many things that are just like popping her off the table, and they don't care about her steadfast or her protection right now.
Yep. I also think, Gar obviously always gets that hunker, right? When he focuses, so, like that's pretty good against Empire,
That's
but
pretty good, yeah.
But like we say that, and then like Obi Hunter list just has, hunkers forever.
So that's my question: is how come Hunter isn't in this list if we're going Scoundrel?
I mean, Wrecker should be.
I mean,
that's a good point.
Even
See,
having
the thing I'm throwing out then is the solo list.
I'm okay with that, to be honest. We need
I'll
more bad guys.
get weird. Why not Hondo, Wrecker, ARF troopers, and then you bring Hunter as your second Scoundrel?
Oh, we're talking about like an anchor style. So who you bringing Hondo as the anchor with Wrecker and ARF?
Like, hear me out, right? Because the ARFs are always going to have something with Wrecker. Wrecker provides like that protection bubble to Scoundrels, and then you've got the identity. Wrecker's going to be in a melee anyway. You might as well use him to trigger a Scoundrel identity off Hondo. Plus, you're keeping Hondo like probably a little bit more alive with protection. Like, I don't think it's bad.
I think my only issue with Hondo, in like this concept, right, is you're gonna get stuck on a game where you don't want to play Hondo, and it's gonna happen, and that's the only thing. And as somebody who's been playing a crap ton of Hondo lately, I 100% say you're gonna get stuck in a game where you do not want to play Hondo. Like it's gonna happen. And if he's not,
well, then make
anchor,
Mando your anchor. But I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think Wrecker's actually a very high value Scoundrel. Depending on
I don't
if
disagree.
you're building that era.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, you have the protection bubble, and that's good, right?
Okay.
That's great. It's hard to downplay
now
the potential to double attack, which isn't bad either.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw another curveball at you here, right? The issue with Hondo in this right now is you have 3 people fighting for the same era supports and secondaries that are not very fleshed out.
No, I think it's a really fair point. and something that hopefully is not a problem long
I mean,
term, but
this
is
is-
absolutely a problem short term.
This is what Phil and I kept running into when we were doing the Hondo list. Is like, I can't take Maul because it just conflicts too much. I can't take Cat because it conflicts too much. And that was the biggest issue, was you could only really realistically fit one primary scoundrel from that era that made the list feel like, okay, this works.
Yeah, I feel like Scoundrel in a lot of ways, you have to have a game plan to use models from across eras. It's a really cool, like, cross-era tag synergy where everything else kind of sits nicely in an era box. Scoundrels lets you play well with just about everything across the timeline.
Make Hondo dual era. I said it here. Like,
I would be shocked
Uh.
if they like Hondo, of all the characters, like he's got a very distinct iteration in Rebels that you could make him Scoundrel Spectre, and I don't think the theme's wrong. And he's gone as far as like he's in the Galaxy's Edge ride where he like hangs out in the New Republic era. Like you could make him New Republic too. You could
Yeah.
do the same thing with Cat Bane, frankly. You could do another version of Bane, and I don't think that's bad. Book of Boba Fett Bane, or even Bad Batch Bane.
Sure. Yeah, I don't hate it. I love scoundrels. They're just fun. Like Empire scoundrels all the way. Let's go. So
It's become your calling card.
it really has. Empire scoundrels. I've had so much fun in this game with, but I think we've gone on pretty long, so I think it's about time we start wrapping this up.
Yep.
And we have unlearned what you have learned, and I guess it is my week this time. And I want people to either play or make a list or just discuss at bare minimum. I want to see. I look over here on the shelf because that's where all the unplayed models are. Like,
All the
Talking about how many
unplayed.
models tonight, and you have to go look at the shelf.
Because that's where he obviously puts all the
unplayed ones.
stepchildren
Yeah.
who we don't look at, right?
Everybody else is in my box. It's fun. I want to see, honestly, because I've been having so much fun with Hondo, and I don't see anything but shit talk on Hondo, except for very few people. I want to see people talk and play Hondo over this next week. Like, give me some Hondo play and rejoice in the Hondo-ness with me.
He's better than you'd think. Don't listen to everyone else that's like his identity sucks. It does not. His identity's actually
it's
pretty
Mini
solid.
Vader. It's Mini Vader.
It's Mini Vader, and you don't have to take the penalty if you're playing the right things. Look for things with like a shove on their first spot. Like,
Okay, so okay, no,
yeah, you're
okay,
getting two
yeah,
dice instead of
two-
3, sure, but you can do it at range 5, and you can take no penalty if you shove things out of range.
Out of
Like,
out of the 8 or 9 games that I've had recently with Hondo, I can think of one game where I actually got strained, and it was because the things I wanted to shove, I positioned poorly on my attack. It was my error, not of their stole it from me. It was because I positioned poorly. Whereas all the
hear
other
me
games,
out.
I don't
Like
get
the
strained.
the scoundrel thing's cool. Like I mean, Hondo brings the scoundrel tag, and you get more scoundrel dice. And now you've got Callus that can be a scoundrel reroll battery. Like now you can do extra dice and get extra rerolls for scoundrels, and I think that's cool.
Absolutely. But yeah, let's hear some
I'll run
Hondo
Kanan
talk.
Callus with Hondo.
Let's hear some Hondo talk.
I don't hate that.
All right, so let's go ahead and close this one out. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, let us know, challenging the odds, any thoughts, suggestions, and yell at us about all of our premiere lists that we just built in the Discord.
Yeah, talk to us about your premiere lists too. We're kind of curious to see how other people think about it, right? Like, I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer, but I want to see what other people cook up too and what you're playing.
Absolutely. And with that, I hope you guys all have a good night. Come join the Discord, join the discussion, and play some Hondo.